Hi, welcome back to the Keys History and Discovery Center for our Tuesday edition of, as we explore some of the exhibits here at the Keys History and Discovery Center. I'm Brad Bertelli, I'm the curator here, and today we're going to talk about some of the early history of the community of Tavernier. Now, if you have questions, feel free to type them in, and Aaron will let me know. Also, as we talk about Tavernier, tomorrow we're having a presentation, a new virtual segment called Community Views. And tomorrow from 5 to 7, you have to sign up for a webinar. 5 to 6. You sign up for a webinar. You can find it on a link on our Facebook page or at our website, keysdiscovery.com. And you can sign up for that. And we're going to explore in much greater detail some of the early history of Tavernier. But for today, we're going to talk a little bit about this exhibit. Last week we talked about Planter, which is on the top of this panel, is kind of the precursor to Tavernier. As we know, back in those days before Flagler came to town, this was all sailing communities. The only way to get information, to get mail, to get food, like staples, was you had to be on a boat to go between the islands. So all the communities were kind of on the outskirts of the islands, on the Atlantic side, and all of South Key Largo, the southern tip of Key Largo, was known as Planter. Now, when Henry Flagler came to town and built his oversea railroad, one of the depots, one of the train stops, was in this area of the southern tip of Key Largo, and they named it the depot, the Tavernier Depot, and this is 1907, 1908. Now, there's some great questions or great mythology stories about the origin of the name Tavernier. One of the old stories is the sailor came to shore and said, "Hey, is there a tavern near here?" Which is where the name Tavernier came from. That's a great story, but it is actually a less fun kind of reality to it. There's a large island kind of off the coast of southern Key Largo called Tavernier Key, which is kind of where the name Tavernier comes from. Now, that name is one of the oldest named islands in the Florida Keys, and back in the 1600s and 1700s, it had a variation of names called K. Tavano, and Tavano is spelled T-A-B-A-N-O, but in Spanish, when you see a B, it's pronounced as a V, so it's K. Tavano, and Tavano is the Spanish word for horsefly. So Tavernier actually means horsefly. You can watch it change in names on charts as it goes from Cayo Tubano to Kitavano with an actual V on some of the English charts. And then in 1775, on the gold chart, it is the first time it appears as both Cayo Tubano and also Key Tavernier. That same chart is also the first time the Indian Key shows up as a place name on the island. And from that point forward, it all becomes Key Tavernier for the most part. And that is where the name Tavernier kind of comes from. Now, about 1907, 1908, in 1909, there are some hurricanes, and the planting community of Planter, kind of the fields get kind of ruined. So the pineapple kind of fields go away, and also the train comes in, and the community begins to move away from the coastline to closer to the railroad tracks, which offer a little more stability. There's a constant stream of ice, of food staples, of mail, much easier to travel. By 1908, there's daily travel between Miami and Tavernier. The train actually runs all the way from Miami to Knights Key at the base of the 7-mile bridge. The train would reach Key West in 1912, but up in the upper Keys, there's much earlier daily train service. Now, as the community kind of moves from Planter on the coastline in more toward the center of the island and around the train tracks, this community kind of develops around the train depot. There's packing houses, there's other buildings and people moving in. But then there's a gentleman about 1925 comes to town, moves down from Chicago, and he is a land developer. He is also a real estate developer. And he is attracted to South Florida because of the land boom. And he comes down to this area and begins buying up properties that have been foreclosed on, that have gone into tax default. And he buys a property on Key Largo, he buys properties on Plantation Key, and he's the one who kind of sets into motion the real commercial development of Tavernier. He, some of his two biggest, his name is O.M. Woods, Oliver Woods. Two of his biggest things he brings to the community is he makes an ice house, which is kind of right by the railroad tracks. So when the train comes down and brings ice, now there's an ice house there where the community can go and get ice. Now, probably his biggest contribution is that he convinces Standard Oil to have an oil tank established here in Tavernier, and he becomes the ownership, the owner until the end of his life. He then partners with another gentleman who comes down from the Miami area called Hugh Mack Mackenzie. His name is still familiar. His family is still here, and they become partners. O.M. Woods, Oliver Woods, dies at the age of 47. He's driving in his car on Ponce de Leon Avenue in Miami with his wife, suffers a heart attack and dies in the car, but does manage to pull over, and so his wife, the car doesn't wreck, and she survives. But then Hugh Mackenzie becomes kind of the sole proprietor of the Standard Oil Company, and he becomes the man. And this is a picture here of Hugh, Hazel, and their daughter Joanne. And they come to the Tavernier area about 1928. And Hugh's first job in this building back here, he becomes the manager of the Tavernier Tea Room. Now, during the Prohibition years, when you saw the word tea room, that was kind of code for someplace where you can go and get one of those beverages that are stronger than the law allowed at the time. And so Hugh Mack, as he was called, manages the tea room. He also begins to develop the community as well. And as we kind of pan over to the right, now we have a tavern store. This picture is about 1938. We can tell because this building here, which is most recognized as the Tavernier Hotel, has been constructed. That building was built under construction in 1935 during the Labor Day hurricane. Now you can see by this picture that there are no windows on top, because when it was first built, it was built not as a hotel, but as a movie theater. The tavern store here, prior to the construction of this building, was actually the Key Theater, was a movie theater. Today that's Cafe Mocha, great place to get some croissants and a nice cappuccino, especially on a rainy day. And then about 1939, this theater is not very successful, so they install windows on the second floor, and they make it the Tavernier Hotel. There's also the Tavernier Tea Room, which is the little building next door. Today you'll drive past it in Tavernier, and it's a bright aqua-colored building. But it becomes Harry's Place, which is kind of a real popular area, a popular little watering hole bar restaurant. And what was funny is for years and years and years, I would look at this picture and say, oh cool, they served raw fish salad there. They served, what's the word I'm looking for, ceviche. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool that ceviche goes back that far. And then I believe Aaron told me one day, oh, it's crawfish salad. That guy is just standing in front of the sea. But for years I'm thinking that's pretty progressive to be serving ceviche all back in the 1930s. But Harry's Place is named after Harry Harris. And Harry Harris is one of those figures that comes in and out of the history. He, like O.M. Woods, is also from Chicago. His sister Mabel came down from Chicago and bought the Fern Inn from Ed and Fern Butters. The Key Inn from Ed and Fern Butters in North Key Largo, and had sent a letter home asking for help running the business. Harry came down and helped her at the Key Inn, which then became Mabel's Place. which again was a place that you could, during Prohibition years, where you could gamble, you could drink alcohol. If you were lonely, there were some ladies there that could give you some companionship. But Harry Harris would end up moving down to the Tavernier area about 1931, and he would work for Mac McKenzie delivering oil and ice to the households. And one of the reasons that Harry Harris becomes such a popular figure is that he has a decades-long run as a county commissioner, as a mayor. And one of the reasons that he became elected was that he was delivering ice to all these houses. So he was interacting with people, bringing ice into their houses and meeting them, shaking a lot of hands, meeting a lot of people, gained a lot of local support, and would be elected as one of the first county commissioners outside of Key West. So this is Harry Harris. We have the development of the Key Inn, of downtown Tavernier, and there's a restaurant, there's Standard Oil gas station. There's a picture of the truck right here, but there's also a lumber store. There is a gas station, so if you need your car worked on. They have the tavern store, which is, food and groceries. There's also a food store here, and this is one of the early places in the Florida Keys where you're able to stop, like a strip mall kind of a thing, where you can stop and really do a lot of shopping, get a lot of things done in one area. And again, on Wednesday, tomorrow night between 5 and 6, we're going to go into a much deeper history of early Tavernier. Lots of 30 or I think 40 or so black and white pictures of the development of the community. And I see we have a question coming in. So Aaron?
Ryan Foster would like to know, where did the alcohol come from during Prohibition? Did they bring it in from Cuba using rum runners, resembling a character out of a Hemingway novel?
Cuba, the Bahamas, lots of easy access. The run down in Key West, the run to Havana and Cuba was pretty quick, but the Bahamas too, the liquor was coming because there was no prohibition there, so it was a pretty quick run from the Bahamas as well. So that was a lot of that alcohol was coming in via boats, the smuggling. At first it was alcohol, then in the 70s would be drugs, kind of the same way. But thanks, Ryan, and thanks for tuning in again. He's one of our ardent supporters. He's here for every one of them, all the way from Canada. Cool. Anybody else have a question before we start to wrap up? If not, again, tomorrow night between 5 and 6, we're going to do this, our first of our community views. This will be a deeper peek into a lot of the communities. We're going to start with Tavernier. We'll do Rock Harbor. We'll do Isla Mirada, Matacumbi. We're going to end up doing a second part of Tavernier. Tomorrow's presentation, really from like 1908 to about 1940, kind of to the World War II period, and then we'll come back at later dates and do kind of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Do you
want to remind everybody about our virtual kiosk?
In the meantime, also available on our website, keysdiscovery.com, we are featuring one of our touchscreen monitors every week. Last week we had Legends of the Line, and this week we're doing our stories of the Upper Keys. So this one will be next week. We have our earlier one, which is also going to talk about Key Largo and Tavernier and Ocean Reef. So that's available now. It's a great way to kind of learn some more information. You can navigate it by pushing buttons with your cursor on the screen, just as if you were standing in the museum and pushing buttons on the here at the facility.
Without sharing germs.
Yes, in a very safe, very socially distant virtual world where germs can't penetrate, which is awesome. In the meantime, I hope you guys had a safe weekend. We are experiencing a ton of rain, and so there's no dry plants in the Florida Keys right now. And so we hope to see you tomorrow night between 5 and 6. Again, you can register for the webinar through our Facebook. There's a link on our Facebook page and also at our website. Yes, Aaron?
Is the community info live online? Is it a live?
It'll be a live presentation, so you'll be able to ask questions as we go along. It'll be largely a slideshow with lots of pictures of the development of Tavernier, and then you'll be able to raise your hand and ask questions. I'll be answering them right there. After that, it will be available on our YouTube channel, Keys History and Discovery Center. We're getting more and more videos that are available on our YouTube channel. Lots of great lectures, all of our talks with cocktails with the curator, all of Blake's aquarium talks through our aquariums, and all of our explorations here in the museum. Lots of content there. In the meantime, we will see you tomorrow night, and then Thursday we'll be back here at 10 o'clock to talk about another one of our great exhibits, and then on Friday we are probably going to go live right here at the hotel, providing the rain doesn't rain us out. And we'll make sure and keep Aaron's phone nice and cool so there's no meltdown as we had last Friday, which was a great experience all by itself. But so thanks for tuning in, and we will see you. Do you have a question? Or we'll see you again, and we hope to see you tomorrow night for our webinar. Thank you so much.